Well, over the past couple of years, our Center Consulting Group team has been talking about a couple of popular and really relevant statistics. One is that approximately 10,000 people a day in the United States are turning 65. And by 2030, 1 in 5 people will be over the age of 65. That's really relevant. It's relevant to the clients we serve as they seek to hire new staff and as they also lose staff to retirement. And so today we're going to be talking some about what does the second half of life look like and what is that all about? Paul, I want to ask you a question to start out. You actually are in your second career with the center after retiring from your first career. And we know from talking to clients, but also all three of us here have experienced that part of jumping into the 60s and the fact that that means we are tasting some of what people experience when they hit their 60s. One of those things is fear and excitement. What is it that causes people as they head to retirement to have fear?
Yeah, well, it's both fear and excitement. For me, I've spent nearly 40 years building a career, building a company. That's my identity. That's what excited me, put me to bed and woke me up every morning. And now it's time for a change. What's my role going forward? A lot of what I have been, when you ask me, who are you? That's what I was. Now that changes. And there's an excitement to that, but boy, is there a core fear. What will I do when I wake up in the morning? There's enough grass to cut. There's enough things to do, but that thing that occupied me and defined me in many ways is going away. And what will I be? What will that look like? It's a blank slate that's exciting to fill, but I don't know what it looks like yet.
Is that what you're finding also with some of the clients you coach?
Time and time again. There's something particularly in a founder's mentality, or if you've built a business or have been driving a business, we begin to fuse our identity to that. And it's hard to imagine the business or organization going on without us. And if it does, then who am I? So there's a fear in both directions. Will it succeed without me? What will I be without it? And that's a separation process for us.
How did that affect you, Lee? Instead of second half, we're going to say you're in your fifth half. I mean, you have had multiple careers. You were an officer in the Air Force. You were a consultant. You were an administrator in a college. You ran a nonprofit that you started, and now you're doing work as well with the Center Consulting Group. How have you felt that fear as well as excitement?
I understand the fear that people have expressed as I've talked with them on this material. And oftentimes it's a fear of uncertainty, a fear of unknown. And there is this issue of identity, but that often gets linked with the issue of purpose. What will be my purpose? And so as they think about a next season, they're starting to think about the unknown. What I try to help them understand is this notion of thinking about the unknown in your next season or getting a fresh start isn't new. By this age, people have been getting fresh starts quite a few times. They may just not have cataloged them. So it's possible to get excited about it. And that really is what was central to my experience when I started something new as I was called to a next season is, hey, this is a great new adventure. I've got an opportunity to contribute, to lean into my strengths, and to make a difference in a new setting. And it's just always been exciting and adventurous each time. And that positive aspect of this is what I try to share with people when they get to the point where they feel like they're ready to have this conversation.
Well, Lee, you have dealt with this personally due to your own age bracket. You also have dealt with it in helping others, even did doctoral studies in this area of change. People start hitting mid-50s, early 60s. Things change for them. What have you found changes when people start to hit that phase of life? What's different?
As I've talked with folks, lived through it, and I've been working with people in this area, one of the things that certainly changes for almost everybody is priorities. People do a little bit of an inventory, even if it's subconscious, and people in their 50s and 60s have gotten through the early growth years, they've gotten through the achievement and accomplishment years, and those are important. But now you're in a season where you're starting to reflect on the importance of your family, the importance of your relationships. Some people will talk about legacy issues, fulfillment, significance, and impact. And they may be wanting to figure out how to roll this into a notion of something called retirement, which can look so many different ways. But you get to this age, and if you're healthy, you start to look at some level of autonomy and some opportunity to create a next season that is tailored to fit what your goals are and what your passions and your skills are.
Just to comment on that, Lee, there's a pressure that comes to us from, I'll say, organizations, but frankly from the financial planners that says your life is defined by having built a good retirement, either nest egg or something. And that's the focus, that's the milestone. And we begin to buy into that and start to be defined by retirement will be when there's enough. And once there's enough, then you're done. Well, something in us doesn't want to be done. So it's a real misfit, I think, between that financial planning and I'll say stewardship of your life and your gifts.
That's a great point. And if I can piggyback on that, then you get to this issue of, well, what is the role of money in my life? If you're supposed to work until you've got enough, there'll never be enough. If you can figure out when a reasonable amount of finances will help you to live in sound stewardship with your family, then you can start considering other options. And if the reason that I'm living is not to accumulate money, but to make a difference in my community and my family, then I can start having some really exciting conversations about what my options are with the resources that I have if my spouse and I are satisfied that this will be sufficient for us.
Yeah, it does seem, at least from our experience and talking to people that we coach, that the two equal fears are either do I have enough money or I don't know what I'm going to do. Paul, what have you found, either personally or even in helping others, that questions people should be asking as they start hitting their mid to upper 50s and heading into that new chapter?
Sure. One of the things that was really helpful for me, and I've done with coaching with a number of folks, is to say, let's look back at the first half or sometimes the first 2/3 and say, what have been those experiences, successes, and failures, the challenges you've met that have accumulated in your life, and think, how has God and life been preparing you for this next half or 1/3? And you begin to look back and say, I've accumulated gifts, experiences, skills, abilities that now can be applied in new ways. And I've made lists, and the list I made was, what have I done? What do I know how to do? And who do I know? And I actually then converge those three to see where my gifts and next calling might be. It's actually what brought me to the center in many ways, to say my experience in the church, my experience in organizations and in building things seemed to be a good fit for working with organizations and businesses at the center.
How about you, Lee? What have you found?
Well, I love that response because I do believe we're equipped incrementally through each experience that we have for work in future seasons. I can see that so clearly as I get older and reflect on my own life and watch other people as we work through this. But I also like a precursor and another aspect of this that comes after that part. A precursor question that people ought to be asking is, what kind of unfinished business do I have? What do I need to get closure on? Lots of times by the time someone gets to 50 or 60, there are a whole lot of things that have happened in their adult life where it's been important to deal with it, but not necessarily completely, so you could keep moving on. We're raising a family, we're working through all the bills, we're raising the kids, we're just keeping things moving. And sometimes there's something in the back of your mind that you just need to get closure on from 20 years ago so it stops nagging you. And I find this really frees people when they can get to that. The second thing is, once you've done, as Paul has talked about, what am I gifted at? All right, how do I want to spend myself in this? What are some opportunities to say in this next season I would really be excited to invest my gifts, myself, in a way that really matters?
I'm a pragmatist. You guys know me well enough to know I'm a pragmatist. And so one of the first things I say to people as they're wrestling through this is, do you have a financial planner? And if you don't, before you talk about vision, dream, passion, anything, you need to find out where you are. And if you don't have somebody, go find somebody who has retirement expertise to talk about, kind of to do a checkup, and like you go to the doctor to do a checkup, go to the financial person and find out where you are, because you may be in better shape than you think, or you may not be in such good shape. And that could affect the type of decision that you make. And then follow that up with passion, dream, vision, giftedness, etc. Where do I want to live? Do I have to take care of an aging parent? Am I dealing with grandchildren or children or disability in a family, a sick spouse? There's so many variables that start to answer the question partially, even in addition to passion and giftedness.
Yep. And that same advice applies not just financially, but it applies in terms of my family life. It applies to my stewardship of my company or my work. Am I preparing not weeks or months, but years ahead of time in terms of what will our retirement finances look like? What are the things we're excited about doing? How am I stewarding my role out of the company so that it just doesn't happen to me, but I'm more intentional in that process? That's where some of the excitement comes from.
Yeah. You'd mentioned earlier, Paul, in a conversation with me, and I'll just offer it up here, preparing your spouse and walking this journey with your spouse, because whether it's your preparation, your spouse's dream for the future and vision, your finances, elder care, very real to me. All of these things help shape the option space, the play space that you have in order to build this next season. If you don't recognize them, you're going to run up against them. If you do recognize them, you can have a more realistic option set for you to start to explore.
And agreed, preparing your spouse is a very important piece of that. We noticed when I was around home and a bit more and had a little more free time, it was not necessarily a great fit as I interrupted the lifestyle my wife had created. So we had to do a little work on that and get a little consultation from the center to help us figure out how do we do this well together.
And I would add that for men and women, the spouse is a really gifted reality check. They know us better than we do. And in many cases, we know our spouse better than we do. That's just human nature. And to make a group decision that's going to affect more than just you alone, that doesn't reflect the wisdom that should come with 5 or 6 decades.
Yeah, I know my wife, my dogs, and my adult children, none of them are ready for me to be home all the time. So the odds are stacked against me. Because as my one daughter told me, I will drive them all crazy if I'm home too often. And I think that's what you were talking about.
Oh, that's
You have to
exactly right.
navigate.
The interruption of a routine is a very important piece of things to look at, and how will we adapt to being in the same house a lot more together.
My wife and I, for 8 years, have led this nonprofit you referred to. We work together. We are both employees. We work in the same place. We would both tell you we've never done anything so difficult. It's hard to work together with your spouse. It's fulfilling, but it adds a dynamic to your relationship that for us is completely new.
Yeah, very, very, very true. I was thinking about this as we bring closure to this conversation that, both of you have tasted this firsthand. So you're in a different role now than you were 5 years ago. In kind of bringing closure, one lesson. What's one lesson you have learned so far as you go into this second half?
A time in retirement or during this season that contributes back to your family, your community, and the greater well-being is a biblically valued season. This is crucial time. So much has been invested in you by thousands of people we can't even name to bring us to who we are right now. If we sit on that, we're missing a tremendous opportunity, and we're causing other people to miss that same opportunity.
Yeah, it's almost like being given unlimited wealth and doing nothing with it, right?
Right.
How about you, Paul?
Yeah, I think if we focus just on the leaving, we're missing the big picture. Yes, there's a loss, there's a transition, but that sense of calling doesn't stop. We don't have just one calling in life, but there are multiple callings, and sort of focus on what am I going to? And it's not a fishing pole or a golf club. It's the accumulation of experiences, the wisdom, hopefully, that we have. How is that all now going to be put to use in the next chapter? That's where the excitement comes from and the momentum to just push it forward.
Well, both of you have really modeled, I think, with excellence, how to do the second half well. You're not coasting. You're actually using your gifts probably in many ways more significantly now than ever before. So thanks for participating.